Well, that controversial change made to the whistleblower complaint form has created an uproar on Capitol Hill. According to the Federalist Sean Davis, the intelligence community modified that complaint form just weeks before the Dems used a complaint to launch an inquiry into President Trump. In May of 2018, the whistleblower complaint form read, quote, "In order to find an urgent concern credible, the Inspector General of the intelligence community must be in possession of reliable, first-hand information. The Inspector General cannot transmit information based on an employee's second-hand knowledge of wrongdoing." Well, a mysterious revision in August of this year, eliminating the requirement for direct first-hand knowledge of wrongdoing, as we now understand it. Joining us now is the co-founder of the Federalist, Sean Davis. Sean, great to have you with us. This is, I want to get first your sense of this impeachment effort by the Democratic Party against this president based on the transcript that you've read, that we've all looked at, the complaint and its allegations and the way in which they are constructed, and by the way, the issue of first-hand knowledge no longer a requirement, and then the cover-up. So let's start with your judgment of the conversation.
Well, I think it's important to note that earlier this evening, about an hour ago, the Intelligence Community Inspector General issued a very long press release in which it completely vindicated our reporting on the change to that whistleblower form. In fact, the Intelligence Community IG admitted that it did change the form in August, that it did eliminate that guidance requiring first-hand knowledge, but it also stated that this particular complainant filled out the previous form, checked the box that he did have first-hand knowledge and additional to hearsay, and even attested under penalty of perjury that all the information he offered was true. And I find that particularly interesting, given that we know, based on that transcript that the president declassified and released, that the complaint from the so-called whistleblower was actually riddled with false statements and errors. I think that is something that is extremely significant going forward.
And as our Catherine Herridge reported, the issue of whether or not changing the form is adequate to remove the burden of first-hand knowledge. This is stunning stuff. And by the way, it's part of the reason that I have said about this entire impeachment theater that Nancy Pelosi has authored, along with Adam Schiff. It seems so clumsy, Sean, on its face. The narrative of that transcript of the call between President Trump and Zelensky. The idea that it was a cover-up to have a password-coded, top-secret file for a presidential conversation with a foreign leader.
Right. That particular complaint that somehow the president had something to hide by putting information that was being leaked on a server where they couldn't leak it is a little like a robber trying to get into your house saying you broke the law by putting a lock on the door or an alarm in your home. And I think what we're seeing right now is complete projection from the Democrats and their left-wing media allies. After all, it was the Democratic Party and the Hillary Clinton campaign that colluded with foreign governments during the 2016 election to meddle in our democracy. Recall that it was the Hillary Clinton campaign and DNC that funded a foreign spy who, by his own admission, colluded with Kremlin officials to spread dirt about Trump and his affiliates during the campaign. And yet when the President of the United States and his Attorney General have, under the law, taken their authority to get to the bottom of that election meddling, which we know happened, somehow it's the investigation that is now a high crime and misdemeanor, rather than any crimes that we know were committed during the investigation. It is a stunning and brazen act from Democrats, and I feel like we're through the looking glass at this point.
Do you believe that because on its face this is a preposterous set of circumstances, and frankly, every element of it contrived by the Democrats is fraudulent? Do you really believe it won't collapse of its own weight?
Well, we've seen this happen several times. We saw it happen with the Russian collusion hoax, which even after a sprawling multi-year special counsel investigation turned up zero evidence of collusion. And it's also a similar playbook that was run during the Supreme Court nomination and confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh, in which the left-wing media and Democrats used bogus hoaxes against Brett Kavanaugh to try and torpedo his nomination, and that fell under its own weight. But I think what will happen is once the facts come out about Ukraine's involvement in 2016 election meddling, about the Obama administration and DNC's involvement, I think the American people will become quite knowledgeable of the fact that every crime Democrats are accusing the president of committing, they themselves either have committed or are in the process of committing.
Sean Davis, we thank you very much for being with us, and thank you for all the Federalist is doing for expanding the body of public knowledge. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Up next, the Hillary